Oops. Christine, I can see you now. Hello.
Is that me? Can you see me?
Valerie, I still can't see you.
Okay.
Let's see. Great. Christine, I just got your email. Technical difficulties. But we're in. Babak, I can see that you have joined us, but still can't hear you or see you. And Christine, it appears you are logged in twice, which is fine. And let's see.
Hi guys, I can hear you.
Oh, great. There we go. We've got audio. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. And Christine, could you test your audio? I can see you, but still can't hear you. Still no audio, but I see you speaking. All right. Well, Christine, while you're working on the audio.
Okay. Is it working now?
Oh, yes, there you are.
Okay.
Okay, great. There we go.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, it's no trouble. It's no trouble. So, welcome, Valerie, Christine, and Babak. It's so good to connect with you online in this virtual space as we get ready for our TESOL 2020 panel, social responsibility panel.
That's great.
Yeah, so I started back at work on Thursday. We had a 2-day work week, and my intention was to have something a little more formal for us to connect over today, send out an agenda, but it was a really busy couple of days with students who were dismissed, who had concerns that I was dealing with, and then also getting ready for arrivals week next week. So I am certainly okay with this being a little less formal and just a chance for us to connect as much on a personal level, to get to say hello, see each other, and it set some expectations or just create some expectations for TESOL in Denver, which is coming up. It's coming up really fast, right around the corner. So anyway, just let's maybe go around the Zoom room one time, just to say hi, check in over the holidays, and maybe to say what you're excited about as we get started in 2020.
You go first.
I'm happy to go first. As I mentioned in an email, I went to Asheville, North Carolina, where one of my sister lives, and it's kind of a central spot for my other sisters and my dad, and we converged at a farmhouse in a little town called Marshall, about 45 minutes from Asheville, and just got to spend quality time. We played some games and did Mad Libs and, all the things that we love to do as a family that are kind of traditions for us. And I got back to Dayton on New Year's Eve and stayed in New Year's Eve, but had a 6.5-hour drive in each direction to kind of reflect on the past year, 2019. And it certainly was a year of ups and downs professionally. And I started a new role in last July as the assistant academic director with U Dayton Global, which is a partner for a for-profit Shorelight education. And so that has been part of kind of what does that mean for my career and where am I headed with this next step? And but I'm feeling a lot of energy. I have loved this role, being in this role for the past almost 6 months, and feel like I'm on the right track. My main resolution, which is more of a goal and a SMART goal, is PhD focused, really, to create space to read and write. My dissertation topic is international students in higher education with a social justice lens, with an anti-deficit framework in mind. And I hadn't had much time in 2019 to do that. So I'm refocusing, and even later today, I will be at the cafe with the reading, starting the reading process. So I'm checking in with all of those things. And who's next?
Okay, I'll just briefly tell you that we enjoyed Hanukkah with our family just on one occasion, and we lit candles alone, my husband and myself, and we've never done that before. We've always had people surrounding us, but our kids are away from Jerusalem at the moment, so we did that lighting on our own, except for one night when we were with the whole family. New Year's Eve and New Year's Day was inauspicious for us, but we're looking forward to a year of good health, and I'm looking forward to being at TESOL again for this year. And there's a certain amount of tension at the moment here in Jerusalem because of recent events, just a couple of thousand miles away. And I noticed, I don't know if you people got the notice about a diversity conference online that's on at the moment. Did anyone notice that? Oh, it's called the Leading Equity Virtual Summit. Has anybody heard about it?
No.
I have not.
Okay. It's been going for 2 days. Heidi sent me the information. Today is day 3 of the Leading Equity Virtual Summit. And it's an online event. And there you are. Dr. Salsan Jabber is talking about educating in post 9/11 society. And Tori Weston is talking about doing equity work. I'll send you the details. Or shall I send everyone the details about it? Because it looks really interesting.
Valerie, if you wanted to post a link into the community chat on the bottom right, if there's a link to that.
There wasn't a link. It was a kind of a report that I got from Eakins, Sheldon Eakins, who's the chair. Can I forward this to you?
Sure, you can.
To everyone?
Forward it
You know, I'll forward it. I'll forward it to you, Sky. And Christine. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Babak. Yeah. Who else shall I forward it to? Who's with us?
Ayana just joined us. Hello, Ayana.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear
Doing
me?
well. Welcome to
Hey.
the chat. We were just checking in with a short statement about how we're doing in the beginning of 2020, just what we're excited about. And,
Oh, thank you. That sounds great. Well, it's a new decade.
oh, although, hold on. What Valerie was just finishing up hers, so we'll
Okay.
we'll bring Valerie's to an end, and we'll.
I'll finish up mine. I'll send this off now, and then I'm going to take 1 minute break because I have some bread baking in the oven.
Okay.
Okay.
See you back.
So, hold on.
I can smell the bread baking.
All right.
But
So
I'll send forward, and I'm just looking forward to being with you guys and getting something done. Okay, so I'll be back in a minute.
okay. Thanks.
Okay.
All right. Next check-in. Who's up? Christine, since you were here, go right ahead.
Okay, sure. Well, over the holidays, I've just been doing the usual work. So I'm working on, actually with Babak and Carter at Barry University, we're working on a book. So I've been combing through proposals and looking through those. And I'm also working on another book on service learning with Routledge, and then another one, which I didn't expect all three proposals to be running at the same time, but they all are. So I'm working on those three things. And then this week I'm headed to Seattle for the Modern Language Association convention in LA. So I'll be presenting on activating social justice across second language studies. So those are the things I've been working on, in addition to new courses and programs and other things. So that has been my holiday, and it's usually the case. So the new year doesn't change. This is the new year.
Well, good luck with juggling all those projects. That is quite a plateful.
Yeah, the only thing is the Seattle trip on the way back, back home, Philly, it's a red-eye flight. So that is one thing I'm not looking forward to, but I'm looking forward to seeing Seattle for the first time. So that'd be neat. And I'm certainly excited to meet everyone at TESOL in Denver. So that'll be my first time at Denver, and just to meet everyone, this will be amazing. This will be great. So I'm looking forward to this as well.
Like that. Great. All right. Thanks for checking in.
Sure.
And Babak, are you there with?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. What are you excited about in 2020?
Well, I guess I'm the same. I'm in the final stages of doing my dissertation, so I was collecting data, analyzing the data, stuff like that, working on the book with her, on a couple of other projects. And it was not like a holiday for me, actually. It was the same thing. And I'm excited to see everybody else here.
Great. Yes, it sounds like you and Christine working together are busy on some collaborating on some projects. That's exciting, though.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
I'm learning from her.
That's good too.
We learn from each other.
Great.
And I remember those days that you and Sky and Babak that you have with the dissertation phase. That's you have to. It's self-discipline.
Yes. Oh man.
I know what it is. I completely understand.
Cool. Thanks. I know.
Yeah. That's the roughest part. So once you get past that, you'll feel a sense of relief.
My boss yesterday, we were having a team building meeting, and she said I was talking about my goal of the dissertation, and she said there's two kinds of dissertations: the finished dissertation and the perfect dissertation.
Oh.
And I like that little spin on that, because yes, I know the perfectionist in me wants to have it all laid out, and anyway, but that's right.
Yeah. So you're ready for the defense and everything.
Getting there.
Prepare it all. That's the perfection part.
I'm jealous of you.
No need. We're all in it together, Babak.
Yeah.
All right. And Ayana, what's your check? How are you checking in for the start of 2020? What are you excited about?
Well, I'm excited to be on this call with you all. I almost missed it. So thanks for the email that was, saying, hey, where's the link and all of that? Because I said, oh, I've got to be on a call. So,
Great.
yeah, I'm just glad to, be alive and well in a new decade. Very exciting times. I'll be sworn in as a TESOL board member at the end of the convention. So that's a big big task. Yeah, the election was a little bit tight. It was a tight scandal. I'm sorry. Did I say scandal? I'm sorry. It was a tight election. I might have said scandal. The video portion of that had me a little stressed out because I was in Kuwait during that time. So yeah, it was just a lot going on, but anyway, got through that, was elected. I am only the second board member of African American descent to be elected, and the first person served 20 years ago.
Wow.
20 years ago, yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That's amazing. That's wonderful.
Yes, thank you. And so
Congratulations.
thank you. And my mantra has been with TESOL, diversity does not equal inclusivity. And so that's kind of my charge, is to really focus on the inclusive nature and not just wave the banner of diversity, because we're diverse because of our zodiac signs. We're diverse because of our, birth dates and food, taste and colors we like, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're as inclusive as we should be. So I hope to bring some of that to the session that I'll be on with all of you. And I just wanted to add about the dissertation. I finished my dissertation 10 years ago, and I used to think that I would be so free and not have anything else in life to do, and life would be, trust me, as soon as you fit, the best dissertation is a done dissertation, and you're going to be twice as busy writing. You wait.
I'd have to say that's true.
The best dissertation is a dead dissertation, right?
Done. That's right. Done.
The best is yet to come.
Yeah. No, I used to say, I'm not even going to write a paragraph when I finish this dissertation. That's not true. That's not true. And I'm also working on 2 books that will be published in 2020. One is on with Dr. Awad Ibrahim. It's on Black immigrants in the U.S. and we're sharing that. Yeah. I'm so excited.
Great.
We're sharing that narrative. That's coming out with Peter Lang, and then the other publications with Corwin. And that's sort of my part that I'll be presenting. It's the civil rights of English learners and how we are protecting and sustaining those rights and what that looks like at the ground level. So, like Christine, I don't know how I ended up working on 2 different books with 2 different publishers, all coming out the same year, but it's all good.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's great. Congratulations on everything. That's fantastic.
Indeed.
Thank you. And I love Philly, by the way. I used to live in Bucks County.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
yeah. I love Philly. Love Philly a lot.
Well, I like where Babak is. He's in Florida. Babak, I hope you don't mind I said that.
No, it's
Well,
raining
Atlanta,
today.
He knows
today.
that. I
lost my voice.
pester him.
So sometimes it gets cold down here, but it's good. It's good.
Well,
Cold
Georgia,
is what, 60?
Yeah, 60, right. No, Atlanta's coming in a close second. We're bright and sunny at 55. So it's
Wow.
That's beautiful.
Christine, are you in Philadelphia now?
Yes. Uh-huh.
We lived in Philadelphia for 2 years, and
Wow.
I got my PhD at the University of Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. That's not too far from me. That's great. That's wonderful. Yeah. Did you like Philadelphia?
Yeah, and we like it even more now. After 20 years, it's beautiful now. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm hoping to head south. Sometime.
Come to
I
Florida.
like the warm weather.
Come to Florida.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm dreaming.
You're welcome here.
My mom is from Brazil, so every time whenever we go to Florida, since my mom grew up in the tropics in Brazil, she said, "Oh, I'm dying to move to, you know, somewhere warm. And so we all have that.
Great. Well, thanks for checking in, everybody. I feel a lot of energy as we get started here in the first few days of 2020, and professionally, especially with all these amazing projects and all these amazing milestones. And TESOL 2020 is right around the corner. So I am just eager to get a sense of where you guys are in terms of the advocacy strand for which you chair or co-chair, and how you want to bring this energy that we're starting 2020 with into the panel. I shared a planning document just that had kind of the abstract that Federico and I submitted to TESOL for the booklet, and I think we have a lot of flexibility in terms of what we do. The title of the presentation is set. The theme of the fracture lines kind of being this symbolic divide that where social justice work is maybe, you know, it happens in a powerful way. And Ayana, when you were telling your story about being the first woman of African-American descent, person of African-American descent to be elected to the board in 20 years, that just came to mind as a fracture line right there between TESOL, within TESOL itself, and resonates, I think, with our theme. And so for as much time as we have to go around and see what you're thinking about the time that we have, and if you need other information, let me take a step back, and maybe if you don't have the document in front of you, we have 105 minutes for our panel presentation, which, as I mentioned, is called "The Challenge of Social Responsibility in TESOL, Healing Along the Fracture Lines." And the abstract includes the definition of fracture lines. We used a book from 2017 published by the British Council. Fracture lines are difficult places like Palestine and the US-Mexico border where ELT can be used for human progress and healing. Using this definition, panelists representing 4 social responsibility domains explore how ELT along fracture lines affects professional learning, teacher identity, and EL advocacy. So it's really, there's a lot of room for flexibility. I mean, there's a lot of room to bring our work into the panel discussion. And we had originally thought that each advocacy strand would have about, well, that Federico and I would, as moderators, present for maybe 10 minutes, kind of some of the theoretical framework, what are fracture lines, where they are, and how ELT plays a role in those places, and then hand it over to you all as the leaders for each strand, and have about 20 minutes to talk about your work and how it relates to the theme. Valerie, in an early email, well, shortly after we called for participation in the panel, expressed some concerns about wanting the panel to focus on the social. Oh, and Valerie, hold on, let me pull it up. They were very good comments, and I wanted to make sure that I summarized them accurately.
I'd had some conversations with Yasid, and I know he's going to be on the second of the meetings.
Yes, on Wednesday. So, well,
yeah.
I don't want to take up our time while looking for that email, but that was just generally to lay the foundation for this. And so just I'd like to open it up and for us to go around maybe once or twice more with some general thoughts, and specifically if you are presenting with a co-presenter, how you might work together to develop the content for the panel. So anyway, time for initial thoughts, feelings, hopes, concerns about our 105 minutes for this SRIS session?
It needs to be cohesive. So as far as beyond the notion of fracture lines, how will that work out?
Yes, and one of the ways to create cohesion that Federico and I and Valerie in our first conversation that we had talked about was having a series of guiding questions that we could either go, so if we had 3 guiding questions, either one strand could answer all of those questions over 20 minutes, or we could go one by one, a little bit more rapid fire succession. That might break the cohesion or the coherence of each individual strand, but the guiding question format seemed to create that link between all of the domains, all of the strands.
May I add something?
Please.
I was thinking about when you said the idea of fracture line. So if I do idioms, so if we look at a fracture, like a bone fracture, there is no cohesiveness in it. So I believe these populations which are underprivileged, under-researched, underrepresented, so they are metaphorically speaking like a fracture line, like a fracture, like a bone fracture. There is no harmony in it. It's all about disharmony. It's all about having no rights or fewer rights compared to the center, as Spivak puts it, center, as opposed to the margin. So they are sort of marginalized, and we want to bring them back into the center or empower them, enable them, encourage them, stuff like that. So maybe it's a good idea to just collect them within a pool that who you're going to talk about, like these groups from, or these countries, or it's going to be policy or politics, or a little bit less about politics and policy, what the UN has done, what each and every single country has done, any good practices, any success stories that this country did, for example, in Africa, and they were quite successful, or that app or that project, the role of technology and computer and digital world to bring hearts closer, to have fewer even sanctions. So I'm from Iran originally, and I had talks a couple of times about sanctions and how it can actually deprive normal people within one society, even for food and medications. And I'm from the Middle East, so what's going on there? Or the other day we were talking about the impact of poverty on English language teachers in the world, and the fact that they cannot really use or attend sessions in TESOL conference or any other conferences, professional development days. So a lady showed up the other day while I was presenting at TESOL, and she said that she worked at, I believe, Southern California University. And she had developed an app that does not need an internet connection for people in the third world countries. And it was about professional development. So how you can hone the skills, teaching skills, how you can learn from other people in your region, localized solutions for local problems rather than global solutions for local problems. So I believe we can have a pool of thoughts, and then you can either assign it to different sections or different, how do we put it? Different sections of SRIS, different strands, yeah, to different strands. Or they can say, oh, this is tightly related to my strand, or I'm really interested in that, or that's my expertise. That was my 2 cents.
Yeah.
That's wonderful, and great food for thought.
Yeah, I think in line with what Babak is saying with these limitations due to digital divides and developing these types of apps, some of the things that I'm doing right now is connecting learners in foreign language courses, so specifically in Spanish, with English as a second language learners in nonprofit community organizations. And I'm also having these students connect with medical clinics to improve migrant health and access to critical resources in the community. So that's what Babak was mentioning. Instead of looking at the global perspective, really checking our local community to see what types of things can be done to improve situations. So this has the social justice realm, migrant health, and just looking at these types of solutions that we have locally and what we can do to team up to make things, to improve things. Because technology has been an issue, even in communities where I have visited, the comunidades or favelas in Brazil, for example. A lot of these communities are developing, resources to access the internet using smartphones, but a lot of these communities are still in the dark, even though we've seen this, tremendous increase in use. So helping those individuals that are coming to wherever it might be, if it's Australia, if it's New Zealand, if it's United States or whatever, locally, as Babak was mentioning, what types of things we can do to start connecting learners, even in foreign language courses, not just ESL or English as a foreign language, connecting learners of different language areas to help each other and team up. So that's one of the main things that I've been doing that I'd incorporate into the convention.
Great. The global versus local paradigm,
right.
And
yeah,
focus on a more local level.
And just to extend that thought, so part of what I'm going to be presenting was actually the keynote that I did in March in 2019 for Pre-K-12 Day. So I was the keynote speaker, and I do this portion where I don't know if you're familiar with the show. John Quinones has a show, What Would You Do? Had anyone ever seen that show?
Mm-hmm.
No.
So
yes,
so
I have.
Yeah. So there's situations that I've gathered. There are different scenarios that I've been involved in out in the field. I primarily work as a consultant, working closely with school districts and low performing school districts with populations of English learners in K-12, predominantly public school settings. So I start off by saying, nobody wakes up in the morning with the intent of violating someone else's civil rights, right? Nobody says, I'm going to violate, 2 civil rights this morning before lunch. I need to get that done today, right? Teachers don't wake up with that intent, but unfortunately it happens. And so for my portion, I'm going to go through a few scenarios, and I essentially ask the crowd, what would they do? And I put them in the shoes of the school leader, and I say, would you do A, B, C, or D? And we really talk about it, because ultimately there are implications with whatever they decide to do. But we need to really, acknowledge that these are real situations. These things are really happening. It's not theoretical. I don't have any fake news to share. I'm actually sharing the things that I've seen out in the field, and then I talk a little bit about how they were rectified. But it does make the audience a little bit uncomfortable, but it's in that cognitive dissonance that we actually get people to think about it critically, because I'm not there to make you comfortable and pass out chocolate and everybody's happy. The work we're doing is painful. So that's what I'm going to share, some of those what would you do scenarios.
Great. Okay. Thanks for the initial thought. Valerie, go ahead.
Ayana, which strand would that come into?
I think it'd be policy for K-12, because I'm going to talk about the civil rights guidance that districts and schools must adhere to, and then give scenarios where essentially they're not following that guidance. But I'm going to frame it so people will feel empowered to say, well, I would do this and here's why. And then I'll kind of share what happened in those scenarios. But it would be under policy, because this is what the federal guidance says we must do for students. But what happens when that's not really followed or adhered to?
I just feel that you have so much to tell us that people wouldn't want to listen to anyone else in the panel. People would want to hear
Oh
you.
God,
through.
no. That's I appreciate that, but no way. I'm just one little bone fragment of this whole broken bone. So I can go last if you want to kind of leave that thread hanging, and then you all can wrap it together. But you know, those scenarios are real. But please, I'm just one little hairline fracture in this big picture.
Yeah, but
Thanks for extending the metaphor, Ayana. I think, Ayana, Valerie's thought is that we have the 4 advocacy strands, EL advocacy, global issues, and professional learning as the co-leader, the co-chair of the professional learning strand. If there's, you know, I think this is a cool opportunity for us also to promote the social responsibility intersection. I mean, that's obviously a secondary motivation, but to talk about our work in relation to that particular strand. Valerie, am I paraphrasing your thought correctly, that the professional learning strand?
I'm just, having heard Ayana tell us what she did and what she plans to do, I'd be wanting to hear much more from her than she would be able to give in 16 minutes or whatever we've got for each group. But if we could follow up with those questions that she would ask. How did you frame them again, Ayana? You pose issues, yeah?
Right. So it could be under the advocacy piece or professional learning. So ultimately, you know, if you don't know what you don't know, you've got to learn first, right? And so I also write a monthly blog for TESOL, and I frame it around each month. I focus on a different violation. So at the end of my portion, as a way to sum it up, I could always just kind of show the audience where they could, you know, spend some more time looking at those violations, or, you know, there are lots of resources out there, but really my piece is more advocacy, K-12 public school settings.
Yeah. What kinds of issues will you pose when you say, you know, you give people?
So here's one that happens when we have program models. What type of program models are we offering to parents? And one of the scenarios, I can post it later, is parents were trying to advocate for their child, and he was retained in first grade, and the principal didn't want to move the child out of the bilingual program. And I was helping the principal kind of talk through it and say, you know, let's step out of what your personal beliefs might be and view it from a parental perspective. And how do we make sure we're acknowledging what parents want for their children, right? I mean, wouldn't it be great if, so it's kind of like there was a choice between A or B. The principal wanted one thing and the parents wanted another, but we had to make sure we were adhering to the federal guidance and not what our, you know, personal opinion may or may not have been about it.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking in terms of social responsibility and the various scenarios, the various situations that we have, whether we could use this model of posing these variations of responses to these questions, whether we could use that as a thread, a binding thread. You know, we would. I'm just thinking now, but one of the things that I wrote to Sky a while ago, talking about the issues of Ethiopian immigrants in Israel and the role of English for them. So we could pose a situation, an issue, in the same manner as you would do with your civil rights issue.
Yes. You know, it's really
and
important.
I'm thinking of stakeholders. I'm thinking of with your issue there, there was an issue of stakeholders being involved. And who are the stakeholders in that situation? And I could think of that same kind of issue with what I would think of talking about.
Right, because when we pose those scenarios, we help the audience get granular, right? Like when we talk about policy or issues that are happening, but if we fail to get granular, if you will, people still have a harder time connecting it to like, well, what does that mean for me or my students? And so the scenarios kind of take it from here's what the law says, but here's what that looks like in the building. And so I think it's helpful for the audience.
Right, but that bids for your perspective, because you speak for the law as well, or you let them know what the rights are. And I'm wondering what other people would be able to fashion their piece with the same framework, let's say. Christine, you said you were dealing with the local.
Yes.
And would there be something that you could pose to people that they would then apply to their own situations, or in connection with fractures or social responsibility?
Yeah, I think so. I think that we could look at the situation in the United States and Mexico, and the caravans of individuals not just coming from Mexico, but from Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, and all of the influx of migrants in the United States, specifically in Philadelphia, as well as the surrounding communities. So, and how we can connect our academic context to the community. So yeah, I could actually pose a couple of pedagogical implementation standards that we can all use. I could.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about specific levels, and I'm going through my mind. I may not be saying this clearly.
No, and this is exactly what I hope to get out of this meeting today, just really to get the gears turning and for us to ask these critical questions to each other, to get, hopefully to identify some threads that might be connected to all of our work that don't feel superimposed, right? So that the connections between our work emerge maybe more organically than saying, well, just, who are the stakeholders at any given fracture line, or some of these that we might just conceptually say, oh, these are theoretically good questions to ask, but talking about our work and where the intersections lie, I think identifies the points, because it's all social justice work, right? It's just a matter of finding the more nuanced approach and keeping the theme there in the forefront. I think that we'll find it. It's just a matter of time. And this is a great discussion up to now. So
I have, as an example, I have pre-service ESL teachers working at a medical clinic. So it might seem like, well, why would they work at a medical clinic if they're going into education? This is to give them a bigger perspective of what is happening to the students that they will be teaching. So this clinic serves individuals that are undocumented. Of course, they're uninsured. And so these are pre-service teachers. And they're going in and getting a deeper look into these issues and how migrant health affects literacy development. So these are just a couple of things that, and I've had them work at the hospital as well, at Cooper Hospital that's in Camden, and different contexts, not just limited to school settings, but expanding this.
So that's bringing in the local society and the issues in the society, which is Yeah. Is it amazing what the things that teachers of English do?
Yep.
I always say that ESOL teachers are a special breed in our country, in our association. We've done so much, and the latest piece is a diplomacy course for students who want to take extra credits. They've studied diplomacy and international relations. This is at pre-matriculation level, but
That's
it's brought
wonderful.
them greater understanding and leadership. It's given them leadership qualities, or they've developed their leadership qualities.
That's excellent.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
these are all critical pieces.
yes, indeed.
Yeah.
I'm sure people will want to hear about things such as your action, and Ayana's work, and then maybe Sky, we should have a kind of a forum so that other people can let us know, the participants at the convention, at the session.
Yes.
And also people who can't make it to the convention.
Also agree. Creating space at the end of the presentation for a forum, for there to just really be an informal discussion, Q&A, because I
and
agree.
Offerings, yeah.
And
but also to involve people who weren't at the convention, so that if they hear or read about the panel and what they had to say, and then they can contribute according to maybe to a paradigm of some kind. So that would be developing the interest section through the year, rather than just for convention.
And that certainly is a goal, and I think that's why TESOL creates these specific spaces for each intersection to have a dedicated presentation without having to go through the same kind of submission process. We track to the presentation itself, and I think it is to get the word out, to promote our intersection, to generate interest in the work that we do. And it is inspiring, the work that we do, and I think that the audience is really going to connect with these stories, which just I think does represent the heart of TESOL. Wherever TESOL teachers are, there is important work that's going on. Personally, interpersonally, in the community, in the world, and just one thing I wanted to bring up to the group at the moment, we have within the intersection itself, there are 4 strands. You today represent 3 of them. There is a 4th, the intersection of identity and ELT, and the co-leaders of that strand, neither of them were able to join us. So we have a couple of options. The research that I've been doing most recently has been with returnees to Mexico who have been involved with TESOL training or TEFL training. I've been working, doing an online TEFL certificate, focusing, I've taught language assessment to returnees to Mexico, and have a piece coming up in the next TESOL journal, a research brief on the work that I've done in that program. So I was thinking, if there's, here, the short version, either we could expand the amount of time that you all have representing the 3 advocacy strands, or the 3 SRIS strands, or create space for the 4th one, and maybe we can do both and not either or, but that's just something I wanted to throw out there. So if you feel like you would benefit from an extra 5 minutes, then maybe weave my story into the introduction and into the conclusion, as opposed to having a dedicated 10 or 15 or 17 minutes to focus on that identity, teacher identity and social responsibility. So
yeah, and Yasid will, I presume, talk about his work with the Colombian community and his work with the young people. So that'll be another issue or area that it's global and it's local. He's going to be with us on Wednesday.
yes, yep.
Yeah.
Great. So we'll get Yasid's perspective and share his thoughts. I don't imagine the conversation will be quite as long with fewer. I think Yasid is the only one who, and Federico are the only ones who, no, and Christine, there's Christine Leader. So yes, but it's great to get all of us together to start this brainstorming process. And we've been at it for about an hour. I do want to just open it up if there are any closing thoughts or concerns. I do have a small homework assignment that I would like for you all to undertake before we leave today. But just one time quickly around the room with final thoughts, questions, concerns, a checkout, so to speak.
We're waiting for our homework.
I do have a technical question. Tell me how you prefer to work. Do you prefer to work like in a single Google Doc slideshow, or are we going to just switch PowerPoints for each presentation? I'm just wondering.
I don't have a strong preference. As the moderator, I'm happy to pull up a new slideshow as you all go through the panel. You tell me, how would you prefer to do it? Work from a single Google slide, Google show, or do separate?
I can be flexible as well. I just know sometimes those transitions in between sometimes leaves the group open to Q&A, and I don't know if we're going to do Q&A after each session or just something final at the end.
Yeah, I would prefer the Q&A to just happen at the end so that we have greater cohesion between strands. So, Ayana, yeah, maybe that lends itself more to working from a single slideshow, and that'll be my homework, part of it, to start that and send it out to the group. Great. Got it. Okay. Other parting thoughts, questions, concerns?
I'm very excited and getting stimulated, and I'll have to think about what area I'm going to focus on.
Okay.
Because I have an enormous amount. I looked back at our communications, and I did say that I would be prepared to just give a short history of the social responsibility interest section, because I was there at the beginning of it. But I think maybe you could do that if it's necessary at all.
Yeah, I would be happy to incorporate that into the introduction, Valerie, if you think that is better suited there, and free up more time to talk about the
local fractures.
The local fractures and the global issues, which is the strand you co-lead. And so happy to integrate that. I haven't started on the introduction yet, but I will here shortly. Babak, any final thoughts before I assign homework?
No, I was just wondering if maybe you mentioned it somewhere and I missed it. If every strand knows how many people are presenting and how much time frame they do have every strand, and I think it's a good idea to have it under one PowerPoint presentation, like every strand a couple of slides if they want to switch people, or and then I guess it would be a good idea if somebody wants to just interject, or just if he feels that he has to just say something in the middle of somebody else's, because I think it has got to do with enabling and empowering, and maybe other presenters or somebody from the audience. That's my presentation. I'm always like that. If somebody feels that he wants to talk, even from the audience, I let him talk, because things pop up during that you have never ever as a presenter thought about it. And for me, oftentimes it's food for thought, and I have written about them, I have published about them, or it's my future research line, or it's my future research topics. So basically, it's we need to think about it if we want to be all under one PowerPoint presentation, which is a great idea. That's united and unanimous, and one solid thing. And then every strand can have a couple of presentations, and you maybe as a moderator or somebody who can take the responsibility to see the flow of the presentation, and this is related to that, or if we bring this up it would be better, and if we move it down there, I mean, the strands, if this strand comes first it will be better. It's like a bang done, it piques people's interest, that would be that's a good idea. I mean, it has got to do with the flow of slides and presentations and strands.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And the case is being made more strongly for a single PowerPoint, and I think that presents us as a stronger group, and so let's plan on that going forward. And that's a good segue into the homework. And Babak, your question was how many members from each strand are presenting. There are a maximum of 2, and you 4 represent the EL advocacy and all 3 of them. Global. Christine and Babak, you are the EL advocacy strand. Valerie with Yasid in the global issues strand, and Ayana with Christine are the professional learning strand. I think Gaywan is the intersection of identity and teaching, and I don't remember the co-leader, but there are 6 of you working with your co-leaders. And so the homework that I would like for you to undertake before our next meeting, which might be in a month or so, is to just get together with your co-leader and get on the same page, or iron out transitions. Just talk about content. Think about how you would like to flow within the time frame that you will have, which will be about 20 minutes. And just to begin to brainstorm on a more individual kind of strand level, as opposed to a larger interest section level, which we're doing now. Your mission, if you choose to accept it. So yeah, I think with that we can bring our meeting to a close. I would love for us to get together, maybe one more time before TESOL in a virtual space. I will create a slideshow and maybe even a folder for our presentation so that we can dump ideas and start to communicate more asynchronously. I know it is a challenge with all of the busy lives that we lead to get together at the same place at the same time. So, but I do like this. I value this opportunity to connect with you all, to hear your voices, to see your faces. And, maybe sometime in like mid-February, we can circle back, mid or late February. And then the next one would be in March at TESOL, like late March at TESOL. So does that sound okay to everybody? Like a one more time?
I think we'll have to have something sooner than mid-February, if I may ask, because we need to be quite prepared, and I have a feeling that we should be getting together, maybe if it's just with the Google Doc, but
yeah,
there should be a deadline way before the March meeting.
Okay.
for everything to be ready, please.
All right. Well, let's see if the Google Doc can serve a purpose, and if we feel like we're making progress with just the collaborative documents that we share, then
Yeah.
we'll use those and have one more check-in if we feel like we need it, one more synchronous check-in if we feel like we need it. But let's start with the asynchronous first and see if that works. I feel good. So. Okay, everyone. Well, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy weekend here, so close to the new year, but I really appreciate it. I'm also feeling more energy now than I was. Good ideas, inspirational stories, and you inspirational people. So, thank you.
Yes, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Likewise. Thanks, Ayana. Thanks, Babak, Valerie, and Christine. I will send a follow-up after Wednesday when we connect with Federico and Yasid and just kind of consolidate some of the main points from both of these meetings, and we'll get the ball rolling.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
All right,
Have a good week ahead, everyone.
have a happy
You
new year.
too.
Thanks.
Yes, you too.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays.
Bye-bye.
Bye.